Okay, so I think we're live, but
Oh, good.
wake up, Carrie.
I am. It's Wednesday. We are ready for our workshop.
Yes, and so welcome to another Workshop Wednesday brought to you by School Bookkeeping. Apologize for any technical difficulties. This should have been in the event that we created, but it should be now live on the ABO group and the CBG group as well. My name is Dan DeLong, and we have Carrie Kahn joining us. So so today we're going to be talking about a common situation that's going to come up, and I labeled the event called "Clean Up on Aisle 9" because that's what happens is you come in after someone and you end up having to do some cleanup work. So
Yeah.
so talk a little bit about where about you, Carrie, about what this is, how
So,
this kind of evolved with you, and then we'll share some resources.
so basically, when I became certified pro advisor, which was, one of the number one things that helped me grow my business, and I know that's evolved and changed, and that's a whole nother way that, you get found on the internet. But regardless of how it happens, people find out, QuickBooks. They don't know, they can't hear past that. So they're like, here, you're the expert. And now all of a sudden, you know everything. You know why a computer won't reboot up. You know why viruses are around. And you also know everything there is to know about QuickBooks, every single product, everything. The customer just expects it. They also think that you're going to go log in their computer and in 1 hour, you're going to have it fixed, or just a minute,
Right.
not enough to even charge. So this is
You're a
where,
guru, so you should know all this, and
yeah,
wave your magic wand and make it happen, like Jean-Luc Picard. Make it so.
just
They don't want to
hear anything. They really come to you because they were lazy. They went ahead and bought the $100 software at Office Depot way back when. They tried it themselves. They may have gotten a checkbook rolling. They kind of knew Quicken. They think this is Quicken Books. It's a mess. And what everyone needs to, the first thing, step one, is everyone needs to step back, because it's kind of like you ran over your cat. Is the cat alive? Okay, you need to step back and say, listen, if you'd taken the investment and the time to set this right in the beginning, it takes 3 times longer to untangle this mess. So think of, you're knitting a blanket and you skipped a stitch or a row or whatever the word is, and you got to go zzz and take it apart, or you put a puzzle piece in that really wasn't the right one. Now you've really created a mess. So there isn't a 15-minute fix for this. It's not an hour. It's way, way, way more. So you need to sort of lay down the groundwork to begin with. About, you also need to understand this, that you are not the magician. You cannot fix this in a half hour, even if you're best friends. There's not a bottle of wine that will pay for this. You need to set the boundaries, put those boundaries up, examine the cat.
Are you sure there's not a bottle of wine that would pay for that?
Wine does help, but that can't be the only payment, because if your billing rate is $150 an hour, I promise you, it's going to take you more than an hour to fix it. So
that might cause more problems depending on how good the wine actually is.
I would need a lot of wine to trade out for the. They're going to bring you the barefoot $2 buck chuck, whatever it's called, special for you fixing their QuickBooks. Don't settle. You need the good stuff.
Susan Humphrey said Scotch might help.
Yeah, but Susan can tell you it takes more than an hour to fix. So I learned along the way that the best way to do this is to almost act like you're a doctor doing a physical. You're going to give them a report of what's wrong. Don't fix it as much as you want to.
Don't prescribe anything, right?
No.
Don't give them any prescriptions. right?
What you could do is you could do a little peek and point out a few things you see wrong, and then say, listen, what I usually like to do is do a data file analysis, or some kind of better word than that, clean up on aisle 9. But what we really need to do is look, thoroughly review your file, and let me give you a report. And that way they have something tangible to look back on. Kind of like when you're moving in a house and you're supposed to get an inspector. They're not in there fixing your hot water heater. They're telling you you need to replace it. So think of it that way. And this is billable. This is billable. Now,
all right. So I've posted a blog article that we just hot off the presses.
I hope it's good.
So forgive the spelling errors, because we didn't really necessarily proof it too much, but we can edit that. But we created a how to quote a QuickBooks cleanup, a QuickBooks data file cleanup, and Carrie has gone over and she's pulled into her vault of resources, and she gives a top of the hat, or I guess top of the crown, because you call her the Queen of Pro Advisors, Bonnie Nagayami. Hopefully I've said that right.
I can't get her last name right, but she sadly she passed away, but her vision has carried on and has taught seasoned pro advisors, and continues to live on through her idea.
Right.
You don't fix it for them at this stage. You have to back up and give a report card.
Right. So you go through and talk about that kind of process in this article. So what is it that so you offer this as a service? Okay, I'll diagnose, which is very similar to many other industries that come out to your house. They charge a trip charge,
Yes.
just to come out and take a look and give you write up an estimate. You don't have to follow their instructions, but that's their professional opinion. If you want to get some various quotes, you can certainly, you don't have to follow those recommendations, but this is what you would see by looking at their file. So what I know most of your stuff is desktop focused, and we'll talk a little bit about how you can handle some of this in QuickBooks Online, because QuickBooks Online has created some of these things to help you with that.
Right.
But what is it you would do? You get their file, and then what?
So and this is there's several ways to get the file. You could zoom in and look at it. You can just ask for a portable copy, so you can open it up on your side and take your time with it. Because really, if you're examining it in front of them, they're going to be like, you need to be able to collect your data and turn around and give a report. It's hard to do that on the fly. So I recommend getting a copy of the data file so you can, go through your checklist. And if you go back to my Understanding Your Balance Sheet course and that philosophy, that's really the best place to start. 9 out of 10, they have made a disaster of the balance sheet. So I go through each balance sheet item, and then you move to the P&L. That's sort of my method of doing it. Bonnie had actually designed years ago where she had a website, and she would ask you questions, you'd fill it in, and it would spit out a report. So, but you can do that yourself. You don't have to have the software changes, where to press the keys change. We now have QBO. But the same idea, no matter which program you're in, you really need to get a handle on each one of those balance sheet accounts and point out where it's wrong. And then at that point, you want to make sure you're charging enough for that analysis, or you have it as part of really charge for that analysis. You could charge 2 hours worth, you could charge 10 hours worth. You probably won't sell as many if you're saying, $1,500 to do it. So just come up with something that works, that's marketable, and that you feel like the customer's getting a nice report, that you put yourself in their shoes. What would you want? And you feel like it was worth the money.
And, some of the things that I also take into consideration is, when you're looking at these things, maybe there's some inefficiencies that they're doing that you might be able to recommend as part of the cleanup process that will, one, clean up those inefficiencies, and perhaps that's a revenue source for you. For example, I just I took on this coffee client, and I'm almost out. Sorry. I'm addicted to his coffee, but he sells on Shopify. He sells at farmers markets, and he sells wholesale, to his customers. So as we're talking, and he has a big mess of his books, because his accountant said, "Oh, I'll make an adjustment." Right. And so he ended up making a $40,000 adjustment to revenue, offsetting to a bank account called undeposited funds. So right off the bat, that is incorrect. That's going to save him $40,000 of revenue, because he's not going to have to pay on that. But all of those things can be handled with QuickBooks payments, right? His Shopify can be tied to QuickBooks payments. His in-person farmers markets he can take, and so he's not even accounting for the fees at all in his books. So I'm looking at those things, and like, he's just letting the bank feed handle these things. And so I know if I turn them on to QuickBooks payments, I am going to get something for that, just from that recommendation. So that is part of my long-term engagement with this client, being able to set that up. And he'll be, you should be seeing that shortly, Carrie, because he's about to set it up. So that's another factor when you're considering, how do I quote this? What's the long-term strategy? Is this just a break fix type of situation, or is this some kind of long-term engagement that I'm going to have with this client? So maybe your monthly fees, maybe you just up that up a little bit, because you're going to be working to catch them up to a certain point, and then you figure that is going to be part of this, and maybe this is a learning process for you, and you kind of eat that cost at first until you have the experience to, like, okay, this is not something I want to get involved with, with these types of situations. So I will price it so high they won't hire me, or something.
Or find someone that loves that kind of industry or that mess, that understand. Some people don't like to track inventory, but untangle that it takes. Inventory is fun. It's just a lot of time. So right. Yeah.
So you have here, look at the chart of accounts, look at the item list, maybe sales tax and payroll.
The mapping,
1099.
check the mapping. There's always errors with that. When you're talking to the client, selling them on this, you can use big words like mapping, reconciliation, balance sheet. You'll get the deer in the headlights look. But do come with the confidence that you can fix it. You're not there to talk them into something that they're not getting a good takeaway.
Mm-hmm.
And you did call out a good point. Sometimes these turn into engagements. So if you're a bookkeeper and you want an engagement out of it, it may be a monthly engagement. Sometimes these people are pretty independent, like they ran out and tried to set it up themselves. And you can just say, listen, I think that you would stay on track if I just check in with you at the end of the year before you pass it over to your tax preparer. And I've had clients that way. They just want one more person to take another look. And you could do another one of these. You could do another checkup. You could just take that same format and say, guess what? Your bank, give them an A+ for bank reconciliation, or whatever it is.
Report card.
They've done. Give them a report card.
Stamp, seal of approval from
exactly. Yeah.
So I wanted to show, like QuickBooks Desktop, you have the client data review as an option. And so if you do something like that, where, where it's like, okay, I just need to review, it has tons of tools to be able to find a fix. So makes quick work of this cleanup type of stuff. So like if they've recorded a sales tax payment as a regular check, there's a tool inside of Desktop to be able to fix that. If there is tons of the cleaning up of undeposited funds, which is a huge huge issue
Workflow.
is a tool inside of QuickBooks Online, desktop account, not online. Sorry. But when you're trying to figure out, okay, what am I in for? QuickBooks Online has this nice little overview, and you should be seeing that shortly here. But this overview as the accountant. So when you're invited in as the accountant, this overview. Now this is a sample company, so don't get excited when you see all these all these things in here. But up at the top, it's going to have the company setup, so you'll be able to know what subscription they're on, what payroll service they're using, if they're using sales tax, and any apps that they have connected. So that's going to expand your scope if they have this Frankenstein's mess of apps connected to. So that's part of your follow-up. Like, okay, well, what do I need? Am I going to need to be doing anything with these apps? Right. And then here's your banking activity. So it'll list every account, if there are unaccepted transactions, what's unreconciled, and whether or not, what's the last time it was reconciled through. So, right here, red flag, never reconcile. That's a big thing. So like, okay, well, I'm going to have to get them all caught up in the reconciliation. And then there's this section for common issues. So our undeposited funds, our favorite, right? How many transactions? Well, what's the balance of that? Okay, there's $237,000 sitting in undeposited funds. What's that all about? What am I in for? But there's 10 uncleared transactions, so it's like, oh, there's only 10, so maybe that's not too hard to clean up. But right here, I have 180 transactions, more than 90 days. There's $8,500,000 sitting in AR aging. Okay, so that's going to take a little bit of work to try to figure out what's the deal with those transactions, and somebody's going to need to clean up these 180 transactions. So that's going to give you, some kind of guidance there. Your favorite, opening balance equity. There's a negative balance in there.
Your balance sheet is, they have not done the balance sheet course.
Right. Clearly.
Clearly.
Right. And then some negative asset and liability accounts. You wouldn't want to have those accounts be negative typically, especially if you followed along with Carrie's course on on understanding your balance sheet, right? And then there's the transaction volume. You can run reports or run a date range and see what how many transactions they're entering in on a monthly basis, what kind of transactions those are, to help you figure those types of things out. So that is a nifty tool, especially in QuickBooks Online Accountant, to help you sort through some of these things. So using that in conjunction with the blog article that we posted in the comments, that will give you some guidance to be able to figure out what am I in for, and what is the client in for. But as far as choosing a what did you do, Carrie, when you were figuring out what would this cost for you in time, and how to quote those things with those clients?
I just winged it. I would say, for $299, and this is, billing at $150, that was really 2 hours. That might not be enough time to do it. So you just sort of have to play it out on what you think that they would find valuable in your material, in your report. They don't need to know that your QBOA has all these tools. It's there to help you. It's not something they have access to, but it does make it easier. But like you pointed out, there's 180 transactions that somebody has to touch. So that doesn't make it take 10 minutes like they hope. Right. So do take advantage of your tools. Desktop has them too. We just didn't show them. And the other thing that I think is a really good call out, Dan, that I thought about while you were talking was, often the customer does not understand what a balance sheet is. And sometimes pro advisors don't either. We're looking at just, screen by screen, slice by slice. You can invite them to join. They can be a member of School Bookkeeping and do the class too. If it helps for the customer to learn some of the concepts already, and you don't feel like you can explain it, just have them say, listen, take the course, and then maybe we'll be on the same page. So you're not battling the idea that they don't understand the concept.
And then once you've won that engagement, right? Hooray! They found some value in what it is that you've offered to them. It's like, well, especially in the blog article there where you didn't number them. It's at least 20 different things to
look at.
For them to look at. They'll probably look at that and go, oh, either I'm filled with confidence that this person can handle it, or I'm filled with disconfidence that I can't. Right, either one, and you've won that engagement, and now you're working with your client. We're going to have a guest in a couple weeks talk about a solution to being able to communicate with your client faster, because if we're talking about sales tax, for example, and you have a question about something that you come across and it stops your work, you're done until you get that question answered. So we've been talking with some folks that have a solution to be able to work with your clients, so that you're not texting, emailing, Facebook messaging with those clients. It's all in one place, and all of the other noise that's out there that could interfere with your client communications and engagements is handled outside of that. You can fine if you want to message them about, how much wine did you have last night? Fine, do that, but not in this. Do that somewhere else.
But keep all those documents organized together, and you can collaborate too. So if a team member is working with you,
and it's not interruptive to their day, and it's allowing you to work back in your day. So it's a really cool solution, and they're going to come on in a couple weeks. Now, next week we're going to have Joseph come on again. He was in with Relay. They've created a playbook for the cloud accountant for 2021. So he's going to come on and talk about that playbook and how you can get access to that. They did come on the QB Power Hour and talked about it. So we wanted to share that with your with our audience here today, or next week, actually, not today.
Yeah, next week.
So hopefully that gave you some good information today, and this Workshop Wednesday. Carrie, any closing thoughts?
No, I would just create your own tool, create your own document as a template. And, I gave you in the blog article, you could copy the 22 that I have, and the customer might only have 5. I mean, just use what you can and make it your own, and show them what you're talking about without giving it away. That's the trick.
Yeah, that's a problem I have.
Here's your answer. Right. Oh, but at the same time, you do want to give a little bit away so that you show what you're talking about. You just don't want to do 10 hours of work for free. Just stop doing that. We're all guilty of it.
Or feel the wrath of the wag of the finger.
Oh, I do have one more thing about on desktop. Well, probably for both. Often when you get into that next mode of fixing the customer stuff, create your own login and do the work under your login, because as soon as you fix something, they say it was working until you did XYZ, and you can show what you did with your audit trail.
Exactly.
Don't log in as admin. Don't log in as that bookkeeper. Don't do it.
Right. All right. Well, we'll see you next week on the next Workshop Wednesday.
Sounds great. See you next week. Have a good one.